Hey everybody, Breakthrough Health and Life Coach Glenn Hattem here. I am here with an amazing guest. Say hello to everybody, Marshall.
Hello.
Hello. So where are you at today? Where's the office there? Where are you
To,
located?
yeah, today I'm at the office, which is in Denver, right next to Ball Arena. I live in, my wife and I live up on top of Lookout Mountain in Golden, and we freaking love it.
Freaking love it. And I'm in freaking love it Boulder. And but I love going to Denver and hanging out in all these other incredible places around the area here. We're pretty blessed to be here in Colorado. The conversation is for all us Coloradans as well as any folks that are thinking about moving here because we love all these folks that keep moving to Colorado. What is it like now? Like 15,000 people are moving here a
It's a
month.
lot.
That's
It's
a
a
lot.
lot.
It's good for business. It's I don't know. When I'm out in nature, I'm like, hey, this is my land right now. So there's a lot more. It's getting a little more crowded out there when you're off doing your adventures. I know you're gonna be fly fishing this weekend, and you're probably gonna be like, this is my hole. This is my spot. So
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, like I'm a huge mountain biker now. I've just been all over the board in my life. I've done like a ton of different things, and dive deep into all of them. But I'm a mountain biker right now, and man, like I gotta say, the biggest thing for me in this world is just like recognizing how to spread the stoke every day. There's so many people out there who, like in our state especially, like you said, like some of our trails are getting kind of crowded. And there's people who let that get to them in
yeah.
here, and like for me, it's just like, man, every single person that I can interact with out on the trail and just say, like, as you see them coming, hey, how's it going? Have a fantastic day, whatever, just like create that positive stoke makes such a big difference in our communities, just in the way people interact with each other. Like it has gotten crazy in this world, how people's like reactivity is
Mm,
high,
yeah.
so yeah, that's something that, man, I'm working on that every day. Like I get annoyed also, but it's
Got to
like,
get up
man,
early
look,
then if you're annoyed, right? You got to get up early.
yeah,
You got to go on
yeah.
the weekdays.
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
was just at Manitou doing the incline, and that's a pretty steep climb, and there were so many people out there doing it, and I was really inspired by all different
Yeah,
walks of life, all ages, even all fitness levels. There were just crazy levels of people that are like, oh man, I don't know how these guys from Wisconsin are going to make it on this thing here.
yeah.
And not that everyone from Wisconsin is eating too much cheese or something, but there were some folks out there. I'm like, like, here, take some of my water. It was like the water I had saved for my dog. But the amazing thing was just so many great conversations along this climb. Even though we're
Yeah,
all huffing and puffing and working hard up this mountain, it was just such a great vibe. I mean,
yeah,
you have to have a great vibe to get to the top of this thing.
yeah,
And that's kind of like, when you're out there mountain biking and stuff, it's like, yeah, you make room on the trail. You just share the good vibe. It's not only
exactly.
you stoked to be there, but it's like share the stoke.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it lifts you up too.
Yeah, and I love the sport of mountain biking. I've been to Winter Park's got this incredible. I don't know if you've gone and rent those downhill bikes that make you feel like you're a rock star because the bike rides over everything because it's got like the most incredible like shock system, and plus you can rent a bike and you beat the crap out of their bike and be like thank you. But the mountain biking world out here is epic, as you know, hiking, all the great stuff. Now being a biker, there's probably some like pretty significant lessons you take from the time you get away from work and family, like to come back, to the office. Like what is it you bring back from your challenging new dimensions of a different trail and a different type of day experience that stretches stretches your capacity, that brings a certain high level of presence into what you're there to be in service of others with.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mention it because at the end of the day, for me, it's an interesting compare. I started my, well, I won't say that, but I was a very hardcore, serious climber when I first got to Colorado. And actually, I started climbing in Arizona. I was living in Flagstaff. The reason I started climbing is because I had an intense fear of heights, and climbing forces you to figure out how to tell your brain to deal with it and to calm itself down. So for me, that was the thing that just like really started me on the path of recognizing that, hey, this, like, if I want to be good at this sport, I have to do my meditation. Like, I got to meditate before I start my climb. I have to meditate not only when I'm out there climbing, like I have to do it every morning, maybe every night, because it translates. Like, the repetitiveness is what allows your brain to get to the stage where, you know, like, at first you're consciously trying to focus on it, but eventually, you know, as you, this is like the definition of practice, right? That sometimes like we forget about, is that that conscious practice translates eventually to making it into the subconscious parts of the brain. You can let that prefrontal cortex start turning off and just let your body do what it's done a million times. And,
Crazy
you
how that
know,
unconscious competency kind of takes over,
yeah,
and how you got to keep popping out of your head climbing. Especially, we talked about this previously when we were just sharing about climbing and our passions there. And you know, and I share with you, I'm like, I'm not a climber, and my knucklehead self is like, I'm gonna go climb Devil's Tower, and I went and you know did that. And you know, I had a whole bunch of conversations with my sissy boy. Yeah, because as I, you know, climbing up, it's like, hey, we got this, we got this. Are you sure we got this? Like, yeah, if you'll just get out of your head and trust your
yeah,
body and let your body, you know, just figure out this next move, and
yeah,
that will resolve things. Like, and that part of my brain that I need to see the big picture, I
yeah,
need to see all the moves, and like you're not gonna remember like the next, you know, 20 moves,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
unless you're like Alex Honnold, you know, and you're writing down, okay, to get through this part here. But climbing is such a, I love it as a, just probably like with biking has its way of shaping the brain. Well, climbing like really reinforces that opinion of I've held strong, which is that it's 100% mental. These
yeah,
physical things we do, it's 100% mental, and it's you not being run by your mind, but setting your mind with an intention, and then keeping that intention going when the adversities start to, you know, get more and more loud and pronounced. And
yeah, 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 totally. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting. There's a couple of things coming to mind. One of them is the fact that, you know, this all started with me climbing. And then basically, long story short, my wife, I think I was into a certain type of climbing. I did not like bolts. I liked long, moderate adventure climbs. And so, you know, like I was a 5'9" climber. Like there's a lot of people who get really into you know, trying to push their grade. And for me, you know, I wanted to be as strong as possible, but I kind of got to the point where I was a 5'9" climber. Like, and for me, that meant I could on site any nine, whether it's old school 9+ or new school 9, anywhere, anytime. Like it's you know, like I just knew that was my kind of my limit. And I didn't get too into like trying to go and push into the 10s or hit an 11 and like rehearse it a number of times. It was like my whole goal of doing it was to put myself into cool and unique and amazing places, you know, top of Pingora and the Wind River Range, or top of Eldo rewritten is a
yep,
fantastic, you know, in Colorado here, or in the park, Rocky Mountain National Park. Like, kind of putting yourself into these situations that like a normal human wouldn't be able to experience in the normal course of life. And you're just like, this is cool, this is unique, this is different. But
yeah,
the other thing
it's a perspective that like it has to be earned through
yeah, yeah,
really leaning in some hard edges of yourself, expanding. It's like you're like a velociraptor leaning into your, you know, the fence, and it's like you're kicking that fence of like of where your comfort zone is, and you're like, I want to expand that.
yeah, exactly,
I want to
yeah,
open up new territory for myself. But it's like, you know, it's a grind.
yeah, yeah, becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable, you know. Yeah, and so I was into that type of climbing. I think I took my wife up one too many, you know, like 8-pitch routes with a hanging belay on pitch 6, you know, 800 feet above the river, as I disappeared over the roof above it. And she was like just sitting there hanging, belaying me. And And so she just got to the point where I was like, this is like, we as a couple need to do something else now. And I bought her a mountain bike. I sold my nice 7 road bike that I loved, um, and uh, and bought her a mountain bike, and we both started mountain biking together, and she just got super into it, and we're like full on mountain bikers now. But at the same time, the process of learning to mountain bike was very much similar to the process of learning to climb. Like when I started, man, it's just like you're so in your thinking brain, not in the subconscious yet, because you haven't done it before. Like you're practicing stuff. You want to push the limits, you want to try something new, you want to know what it feels like to go off of a drop, and you start out with a curb, and you want to know what it feels like to get a little bit
Yep,
of a
sideways.
rear wheel slash in, and it's like, but man, it's the same process where like it just takes that ability to take it from the conscious to the subconscious. And at the same time, like I'm a total nerd. I was an educator for many years, and so I was teaching in a Montessori school at about the time that I started doing a lot of mountain biking, and was kind of wrapping up my climbing career, having had just gone through a lot of learning in this aspect. And basically I got really into modern day flow theory. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is the one who kind of started this idea of flow in general. And in the modern day, we have begun to be able to analyze people's brains further and further, and not only brains, our neurochemicals as well, and ask like what's contributing to this state of flow, this state where a lot of things happen, but some of them are that time seems to do funny things. It elongates or it compresses, and you are so focused in the moment that you're not talking to yourself inside your own head. And and some people even report moments of flow where they feel so at peace and at one with the entire world. And at the end of the day, like what's happening there is that the brain has developed evolutionarily ways for it to be advantageous to us. So in this particular instance, it's like, hey, if I am a hunter-gatherer on the savannah and I see a lion, like I don't have time to think about whatever it is else that I was thinking about, whether Jane likes me or what.
You read the Lion Tracker's Guide by what's his name?
No,
No.
is that Steve Ranella, something like that?
No, but I'll shoot you the info. But that's a short little
Cool.
book. But yeah, like when you're out there tracking, it's like you've I love part of that book talks a lot about how you're constantly losing the track and then finding the track, and then you're finding the next first track of like, oh
Yeah.
it's like, okay, it's definitely not this way. It's definitely not this way. It's all like, it's a lot of these like,
dude, that has been my life, like that. Yeah. Like, and I think in many respects, it's many of our lives, but yeah, it's like, yeah, sometimes you think, okay, cool, I'm on it, but the journey is the thing that we have to come to appreciate. Anyway, the part of that is that, like, physiologically things are happening. Like what's happening in the brain when we start to do that process of making things subconscious instead of being in the forefront of our brain. It's called transient hypofrontality. And man, this is like research that I haven't looked at in so long. This is from way back in the day. I should like pull up the papers and stuff that I wrote on it. But basically what's happening there is that the brain is starting to shut off parts of the prefrontal cortex. Transient meaning it's short-lived, it doesn't continue. Hypofrontality meaning low in the frontal cortex. And so, that is where these things like your sense of time, your sense of self are stored. And that's also where our conscious thoughts are talking to ourselves inside our own head is stored. And so, people experience this feeling of like being at peace with the entire world. Well, that's because your sense of self is literally not turned on anymore. You're using the subconscious brain, the lizard brain that you've programmed from doing these things over and over again. And so, stuff like that process, and being able to embrace that process for me is, I think, something that in terms of finding the track over and over again, like dude, that like I keep thinking that, okay, like I learned how to do this with climbing. And so I take the climbing that I did and I would apply that back to my job, my work
Yeah.
that I would
Maybe
do on a daily basis.
tell everyone what you do in your work as well, because I'd love to hear it. We can take this from the climbing, we can take it from the mountain biking, and I'm actually writing a book called Amplify that I've been actually a piece of that was around the engagement of the activity that you're involved with, and you lose yourself
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
get yourself out of the way, and that is the way. The way
Yeah.
is to actually not when we remove ourselves from all the societal and our social conditioning, when we can get ourselves out of our identity.
Yeah. Yes.
Because that's and like and that was me when I was climbing, rock climbing this big adventure recently. And even though I was doing skydiving and getting out the plane door, it was like I need to get this little anxiety ridden character out of the way and trust, like you get out of the plane, first step, all I gotta do is just track myself to the door and get out the door. Then
Yeah.
the next thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with climbing. It's like I just need to figure out this next move I need to make, which will then reveal to me the next move. And almost like I started getting into kind of a scurrying movement pattern with my body versus this like really controlling thinking
Yeah.
machine that is very hindered.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I'm somebody who like definitely gets stuck inside my own head. And yeah, like what you just said, like, man, that was climbing for me. I place that piece, I move above it, and I get 6 feet above my piece. And I'm like, all of a sudden it's all up here. And I'm like, I need to place another piece. No, no, no. Like it's a few more moves, boom, boom, boom. We're to another, like, yeah. And I mean, yeah, it's that process of translating it back to the workplace is an interesting one, but it's the same thing as translating it to like mountain biking. And I learned to ski when I was 28. I learned to snowboard first, and spent like 4 years doing that. Blew out my ankle. The soft boots just wouldn't support it anymore. So I learned how to ski 4 years ago, and the hard boots just helped with the ankle stuff. But the point is that like for me, I thought that I had figured it out. Like I had figured out the process, and like in some ways you have, right? Like you lose the track, you have the skills to find the track again, but actually finding it again is not going to be anything like it was the last time. You still have the skills, but it's going to be completely novel, and sometimes you get to the point where you're like, it should just be like I've done this, it should just be easy at this point, but it's a novel situation. It's a different application of the same thing. And so like in the work environment, right, like what I do right now is I was an educator for many years. I got super good at that. I started a financial literacy curriculum for my second semester seniors because I had this moment of like, what are we doing here? Like teaching conic sections to my second semester seniors who have senioritis. And, like, I know that you're never going to use this again. Like if you're a nerd like me, then it's a fun puzzle to solve. But let's be real, like the math that's used in the modern world, I was a math teacher. I was a chemistry teacher before that also, but the math that's used in the modern world is not conic sections, it's data, it's Excel, it's pattern recognition. And it's financial. And so I started this financial literacy curriculum, ran that for 6 years. It won a state award. Other teachers started finding out about it and basically came in and said like, hey, we've heard about what you're doing. We need to do an after school session with you because we need to get our finances in order. Like we don't teach this stuff, right? Like whether it's parent to kid or teacher to student or friend to friend, like we don't talk about our money in our society. And so that's what got the brain going a little bit and started making me say, hey, can I translate what I've been doing for 6 years in this education world into teaching adults how to take control of their finances? So I thought about a lot of ways to do it. Ended up being in a place where what I do right now is I help millennials specifically is what I've focused in on to build wealth through real estate. So on the financing side of things. So I do mortgages for folks, and this is a world where once again, I had to relearn what I was doing, but it's the same exact process. It's iterative. It's, like I think I pick up things quickly, and I think I've like learned how to learn very quickly. And then you still encounter these moments where you're like, wow, like I just did my first cold call to a real estate agent, and how that didn't go well. Like, well, gonna have to iterate that again, right? And it's a different aspect, but at the same time, it's a very similar thing. Like, I would go to the climbing gym. I was very into crack climbing. I said I didn't like bolts. I would go to the climbing gym, and they have these like overhanging bouldering walls, right? Where they would be vertical, but you could also make them kind of scooch downwards to be more overhanging. And at the gym that I used to go to here in Golden, we had 3 of them next to each other. And I figured out, like, man, if you lower them both at the same level, then between 2 walls, there's just a perfect hand crack for me to just like go up and down, overhanging hand crack on. And then if you go lower the next 2 walls, it was a fist. And, so I'm like just going back and forth up and down this hand crack, getting strong, going back and forth up and down the fist crack. Well, right now, like, when I sucked at my first cold call, what I have to do is I have to learn what are the right, ways to have these conversations. And as I'm driving to my next appointment, like, I'm practicing that in the car. People are like pulling up to the stop sign, looking at me like I'm a weirdo. And I'm like, I hope they think I'm talking on the phone, like on the car speaker, because in reality, I'm over here like, okay, give yourself a scenario. Like, here's the scenario. The person that you're working with just sort of has never done a mortgage before, and they've been told that the only thing they should be looking for is the best rate. And they're just like, what's your rate? What's your rate? What's your rate? And like, how do I have this conversation in a way that educates them on, hey, there's a broader picture here. And and so I'll practice that in the car. And I won't go into the nerdy details of why mortgages specifically. There's a lot bigger picture than just the lowest rate, but overall, like, that's the type of thing that I've tried to transfer the same learnings from that climbing or from the process of learning to mountain bike back into the workplace. And like, at the end of the day, like, man, I've gotten to a point where my mountain biking is, I still want to get better. Like, I still want to be able to whip bigger. I want to get past 90 on my,
But you don't jump
mountain
from
bike
here to
whips,
here.
but like,
You don't jump from here to here. You have to reverse engineer, role play, practice, create kind of the place where you can kind of play with the variables that you don't know how to quite do just yet.
Yeah.
And that's very evident just in your share here, that there's a way to like solve these unsolvable things. Like, I know from crack climbing, like when I went to Devil's Tower, there's not really a lot of great crack climbing places. You got to go to like Wyoming to go do that. And when I got there, it was like, oh, I have this goal to get to the top of this thing, and I got to learn how to crack climb at the same time. Stemming and all these other stuff. Like, oh, I've never done stemming like this before, and I've never done. And sometimes it's throwing yourself in the fire. Is I don't know. I believe in that kind of saying, a failure way into success. Learn what you don't know just yet. Make the adjustments accordingly. Become who you need to become. The guy who's just a little more courageous. I know I'm very courageous because I've done some stuff that scared the crap out of me. And so, like, with mountain biking, you're trying to whip out a bigger move and being able to perform it at the next level, a bigger hop, a bigger jump. It's like you still have to start, like, with the kind of the curb version of it, the next mad hop. And that's everything. I mean, if people can just be cool with going over a curb, you'll do extraordinary things eventually here, from the compounding effect of just staying that expansive course, because everything that you're focusing
consistency
is going to expand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same thing on on skis. Like, I didn't even start this process yet, but I just bought myself just to continue to be a big kid, which I think is a huge key in my life also. Is like, I won't always force myself to be a big kid, but it's been like, I have to force myself to do it because it's beneficial for me. It gets me away from the office. Like, it does give me that mental reset. But I just bought myself a trampoline because this year I'm like, man, like now that I'm on skis there, I love the skis, but there's just so many more options. Like, the ways that you can cross them and spin on skis is like, it's a whole different ballgame, and I am not smooth at it yet. And so I'm like, all right, like, here we go. Like, we're gonna practice this on the trampoline and then translate it back to the snow next winter. Like, it's the process, it's the consistency.
I here's someone that's committed, guys. If you're listening to this, there's a commitment. Like, I got a trampoline and I'm gonna get my reps in. I'm gonna play with these like new dynamics, and I'm gonna stretch myself outside of the what's just the normal way. Like, there's all these other realms to go into that are gonna light me up, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like you're continuing to not, like, where climbing stayed in the 5-9 zone and kind of became a master in that safe that place. You're like, I'm freaking amazing in the 5-9 zone.
Yeah.
Versus, like, I go to the climbing gyms and everyone's trying to push those new numbers, or
Well, every time I went to one of the climbing gyms, a 5'9" at a climbing gym isn't a 5'9" in
no,
elbow.
it's not. That's very different when you're outside. There's nothing colored, marked, and
Yeah.
and there's all the conveniences that you have in a gym. You don't have that. It's like, I got to get to the top of this thing. Like, I got to put this on so I can come down.
Yeah, and then like you add in the extra environmental variables, right? They're there to test you. It's like, hey, you can go out, and 9 times out of 10 in Colorado, you can have that bright sunny day. But like, hey, I mean, this is what happens, especially in the mountains skiing. Like, man, I've been on top of Torreys, I don't know, a number of times. And I think out of probably 5 or 6 times on top of Torreys, I think there's been 2 or 3 that, it's just the way you have to ski it in the spring and wait until the snow consolidates so that you don't get caught in a slide on some of these big, like, scary peaks. But at the same time, like, that's also the time where you get up at 2 in the morning to go get up there, and you get on top right as there is some type of, summertime static beginning. And you're like, hey, like, we need to move. Like, we're not fucking around right now. Like, we need to move, and so that's like, that's when especially you start like relying on that pre-programmed stuff. Like, you got to prepare yourself for that, and be able to be more efficient. I think that's another thing that happened to me is, like, I think you can tell, man, there's a number of things I've been interested in, but I got really interested in doing adventure photography at some point in my life as well. And so I did a lot of climbing photography. I've done at this point a lot of skiing and mountain biking photography as well. And that's one of the things that I kind of like about that as well. And the same thing with the 5'9" climber, right? Is that, like, I'm always like pushing myself in certain ways, but I'm always keeping a margin of error. Like, like I knew what my limit was. I wasn't about, like, because of the types of lines I liked to climb. Like, I mentioned Pingora in the Wind River range. Man, it was a 10.5-mile backpack out there with, like 100-pound packs with, a triple rack and, like, we couple of ropes. And so it was like a day out there, and then you get out there, and we had a low cloud ceiling the first day that we were there. And so it's like, all right, well, we can't climb the first day. And, and then you want to get like a warm up in, but if you have a day where it looks good, you're like, hey, maybe we just might need to go for it. Well, the northeast face of Pingora is like, I don't even remember what it is. It's like an 8+ maybe. And we get up there, and we're on pitch 3 or 4, and we start to realize, like, pitch 5, we're like, this doesn't feel like it's matching up anymore, with like the limited route descriptions that we have. So we did a couple more pitches. We never even made it to the top of Pingora because we got off route, and and we kept climbing. But at some point we're like, all right, like, I think we've hit the limit. Like, we're explorers at this point. But because of that, it's like, having that margin of error is sometimes really useful in the mountains, especially. And then there's other situations where it's like, hey, if I'm at the gym, like, I'm pushing, let's push it. Or if I'm, doing a single pitch route in Clear Creek after work or something like that, you start to get to the place where, where you can push it, and where maybe you should be a little more conservative with it.
And that's kind of like with finances, right? That's kind of like in the business world, there's like these things actually are very alive and active, but sometimes we try to think of things in a very linear fashion when life's wild as well too. Like, we get those really in your face experiences out there in the wild, but they're going on here too in the business world. And they're, every day, you're just getting confronted with these adjustments, and, oh man, are we getting off track here? Or how sensitive are we to what's going on, and how we're responding appropriately and making critical decision.
This is literally like the game that I play on a daily basis, right? Is I lock, like, you know, like, let's use this week's example. I locked somebody in on, well, not lock. I got somebody under contract on Saturday or Sunday this past weekend. They are in a spot where basically, you know, my recommendation to them, this one, the reason I'm thinking of this one is especially is because there was kind of a multiple factors going on in the file here. But basically what it boils down to is the fact that people are always thinking about rates and, you know, whatever. Well, the fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, mortgage rates follow inflation, and they follow things like the 10-year treasury and the mortgage-backed securities market. Well, this week, my recommendation to them was, hey, at the end of the day, like, based on risk tolerance, my suggestion to you would be, let's get you locked on either Monday or Tuesday. Now, there was a little bit of a scenario there, because in this particular instance, what we like to do, I consider myself a mortgage advisor. Like, I'm full scale, like, I'm looking out for building your wealth in the long term, but also, like, I do a few things that maybe other people in the industry don't want to do, because the client has to pay more, but they're like, well, I don't have to do as much work for it. So in this particular instance, I basically had recognized that in terms of credit score, we were 3 points away from a threshold. We have a tool that we can use to basically simulate how a credit score could be adjusted. So we wanted to go ahead and do the things necessary to be able to bump that credit score slightly, go above the threshold, the LLPAs, if you're in the industry and technical. But basically, it would get them a lot better pricing. But I really wanted to do that before Wednesday, because CPI came out on Wednesday, the consumer price index. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, if CPI came in lower than expected, then we might actually get a little bit of a boost in mortgage rates. And you might get a slightly better rate, but the downside was a much bigger risk factor than the upside. And that is, if CPI came in high at all, like what happened last time that CPI came in high was we had one of the, in mid-June, we had one of the biggest rises in not single day, but it was over the course of maybe the next 2 or 3 days. We had one of the biggest jumps in mortgage rates that we've seen in the last 50 years, you know? And so, so that's, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that you're discussing, is like, hey, we're looking at this thunderstorm coming in, or like, it might be a thunderstorm. It's just a cloud that we see over the mountain. Like, do we need to move now? Is the downside potential bigger than the upside potential, you know? And it's the same thing with these rates, right? It's like, we're using strategy to figure out basically how to mitigate risk. And at the same time, if we have potentials for gains, sure. But like, we're looking out for the risk factors more than the potential gains sometimes, you know? It's like, it's a case by case basis. So.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, it sounds like what the thought process that goes in, that what you do uniquely is really take into concern, you know, there's all this experience that you have, all the variables that are going on that are kind of out of our control.
Yeah.
And it'd be really great if we can go like, here's our window with the weather right here. You know, it's like, it's go time or it's no time. You know?
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, for people that work with you, you know, you're relying on that hit, that flow state where, you know, you've got all this information, you got all this education, you got all these experiences, and what's happening right now. What's I'm present with what's happening right now, what's going to be the appropriate course corrections. What's the risk, you know, what's the risk factor, you know, because you know, at the end of the day, people are making an investment, and they're coming to you for support on making these, you know, like when I was climbing out in El Dorado Canyon with the guide, and I got in a sticky situation where I got stuck, and I was just freaking out. And she just kind of came down. I describe it as, you came down the rope like a fireman, and she was just like, yeah, you're just like 2 inches off from being able to see the footholds here. Just, we're going to traverse this pitch. And it was like, all she had to tell me was like, just get this 1 foot out here and everything's easy from here on out. And I'm like, you know, I'm kind of feeling like fetal position, like, I don't want any more of this, you know. And but I could just rely on her experience, and her flow state, and her trust, and her confidence, and her relaxed nervous system. I was like, I can take that scary step right now and trust, like, she's got me. Sure, folks come to you as well, and they know by the amount of how your data processing system works inside your head and your systems and processes, that they know that when they can feel really at ease with something that could be really like, God, this is a really hard decision. So it's always, I think for all of us, not necessarily, advisor, but like you're a guide
Yeah,
there
yeah,
to support people in making some really critical decisions that need to, often at times when we're, like going down this path, here's the crux, here's the part where it's like, we need to move through that. And you want to have the guide that's going to say, I'm learning lead climbing now. And one
yeah,
of the things is not just make it to the clip in, it's like actually like I'm going to be climbing all the way up there, I'm going to handle that clip along the way. But there's a conversation that goes in with yourself and with the person that's guiding and supporting and helping you, that you kind of gotta go some places that are uneasy,
yeah,
and you gotta move quickly through them.
yeah, yeah,
And maybe share a little bit about kind of, maybe as this is the time to geek out, and just share a little bit about maybe there's a story or example, like another example of a client, when they're reaching critical mass and decision needs to be made, and there's an opportunity for huge potential, and it's like, what are we going to do? And you've got to come in with the voice of reason, and let them make that decision themselves from a very informed place with Ben Kenobi over here.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's I'm like, man, I want to link the two, of course. In the home buying world, and the reason that I, have focused on millennials specifically is a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is because at the end of the day, I think that there is more distrust of a lot of institutions, not just financial institutions, but there's just more distrust amongst the millennial generation than there has been in the past. And I think I do a really unique job of breaking it down for them, building trust, and being able to just show them the numbers. So the climbing analogy here is when you are learning to lead climb, just since you brought that up, right? And I have so many other things that I'm a huge backcountry skier now, and talk about like risk mitigation in that environment. That is a whole different level. But
Yeah.
the lead climbing example is just a perfect one to synthesize here, is because when you start learning to lead climb, like I'm sure you're experiencing this right now, the bolt is up here,
Yeah.
and you're like, you're right here, and you're like, man, I can reach this bolt, right? But you want to, right from here, you want to be like, hey, all right, I'm grabbing the rope and I'm bringing it up and I'm clipping up there, because that feels safer than climbing up a few more holds to better holds and having the rope, right here at my waist, and boom, clipping when that clip is at my waist, right? Because this is the thing that people forget, or not that they forget, but that our brain makes us forget when we get scared, is that when I'm pulling that rope up to up here, it feels safer because I'm lower, I'm closer down to the last bolt, and so I'm maybe not going to fall as far. But the reality is, when I start pulling that rope up, then instead of clipping at my waist, I'm pulling this extra slack out, so the rope goes like this, right? And so if you fall while you're on that crappy hold, you're taking a whipper, so it's this emotional feel that feels more scary, when the reality of the situation is, dude, climb a few steps up, clip at your waist, and you're safer, And so
Go get your good holds. Go get your good holds. Get up in the right spot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's the same thing right now with home buying, right? Is that I'm one of the things that I do well. And I still wish that I was able to just really show the math to every person I encounter and have them be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I trust you, right? Like, same thing. I wish if I was a climbing coach, I wish every one of my climbing students would get the math of, hey, that's that much more angulated rope and it's a longer fall for you. But like, people still get scared and still try to clip low. I used to do it. But the math in terms of the housing market. At the end of the day, like I consider myself a fiduciary. I am an advisor. I am not ever going to try to push a house on you. Like I'm not going to try to push a house on somebody at all. But there are really, at the end of the day, a few good reasons to not want to buy a house. Like I'd call it, say it's probably close to like 3 or 4. I won't go into all the details, but like if you are in a place where you don't feel financially responsible or responsible enough at all to own a house, like that's a great reason to not have a house. Like that, that's fine. If you think that you're about to move in, 6 months or something like that, then that's a great reason to not own a house. If you want the flexibility to pick up and move every 6 months, anytime you want to, like awesome. But in terms of what we're seeing in the market right now is interest rates have gone up, and there's a lot of people who feel like we're in a place that feels like 2008. I hear it all the time. And so what I do is show them the data. I mean, the short version of it is, and I like, man, I could literally just like pull up and present like the data on this, the graphs, but we don't need to go that far down the nerdy rabbit hole. But basically the idea is, hey, at the end of the day, we as human beings, when we're encountering a situation that we have to make a decision, but there's a lot of data required to make that decision. What we do is we create mental shortcuts. So this is what these two Nobel economists, who heroes of mine, Kahneman and Tversky, Danny Kahneman and Amos Tversky, they wrote this book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It looks like a Bible. It is a terrible read. Like for somebody to try to just read it on its own is really hard. However, Michael Lewis, another one of my heroes, an author, wrote a book about them, The Undoing Project, that breaks it down in a lot more like reasonable terms and a lot more story-like format. But basically these two guys were behavioral psychologists who changed a number of fields for the better. They won a Nobel Prize in economics, despite the fact that they were psychologists. And basically what they said is, when we create those mental shortcuts, there's too much data in front of us and we create a mental shortcut, they called it a heuristic. And what they said is there's several types of these heuristics that we as human beings just straight up systematically get them wrong. And so they go into a few of examples of them, but in the mortgage world, like the most reasonable example is called the availability heuristic, which is basically like in our brains, we just want to pull the thing that is most readily available for us to compare as an analogy. Well, right now, everybody has started saying, like, oh, we're entering a recession in the US, yada, yada, yada. Well, the closest recession that any of us can remember, aside from 2020, which because it was like, that is 2008, right? That was a very, very unique recession. If you look into some of the numbers, if you look into things like births by generation, 33 years before 2006, 2004 to 2006. The reason you look at 33 years is because the average age of first-time homebuyer is about 33 years old. So if you look back on that, there's this massive drop in births by generation. Well, zoom that forward 33 years, it's 2004. We see that massive drop. We also could overlay the number of new builds that builders are building in terms of homes, and they're still building. They were just going for it despite this massive drop. On top of that, you also have very, very poor lending practices. I think part of the reason for that is because, well, multiple reasons, but part of the reason is we've made our financial system very complex. And so people are disconnected from it. And lenders, people like me now, but part of the reason I got into this world is because I would basically want to be representative of the opposite at the time. Lenders are like, shoot, I'm going to make as much money as I can. Like, so if they're going to allow me to do a loan with a 500 credit score, 0% down, no documents, like, well, I'm going to do that. And, you do a lot of those bad loans, and then you have this dynamic of population declining very quickly. So at that time, we call it household formations, basically number of people who want to buy a house, builders are still building, and combination of factors. It's like, well, that causes this 2008 crash. The housing bubble itself caused the recession, not the other way around. And, like in terms of talking to home buyers nowadays, like what I like to do is I don't even go through all the details of that with them. But like, if you look at previous recessions, like you can look at the last 6 recessions, with the exception of 2008, housing has done extremely well throughout them. But we feel like it feels kind of like 2008 maybe. So we make these emotional based decisions rather than looking at the numbers. So the other thing that's happened is rates have gone up. And so people say, well, I'm just going to wait until rates go back down to buy. Well, so what I like to do is just pull the numbers. And so, you know, we basically create some spreadsheets where we can say, okay, let's assume that home prices are only going to appreciate at 4%, which is a very reasonable historic average. But because of the fact that builders got scared, stopped building after 2008, we don't have enough homes anymore. That is something where, you know, like 4% is definitely on the low end. It's historically accurate, but like we just don't have as many homes as there are people anymore. So we're probably going to see appreciation that averages closer to 5 or 6%. And for the past couple of years, or you know, past 6 months, it's been like 20%, 30% at times and in pockets. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons I won't go into that happened, but basically people were willing to prepay a little bit of appreciation and a little bit of interest in order to get a lower rate back, you know, a couple of months back. Well, rates go up. Now we have less buyer competition. So in reality, it's actually a really, like, you're going to have a high rate, but it's actually kind of nice. Like, you're not having people bidding over ask, basically prepaying that interest. And you also, you know, end up with people saying, oh, well, I'm like, rates are going to come back down. They are, like, you know, like, we don't think they'll go back down to the artificially low, you know, high twos. That was driven by government buying up $35 billion of mortgage-backed securities every month, which creates a dynamic in the market where rates were able to be pushed really low. We don't think we'll go back to that, but you know, there's going to be a refinance opportunity within the next couple of years. So you're going to get your rate, you know, a higher rate now, you're going to refinance. But okay, let's say that you choose to just wait. Let's say that you couldn't, that for some reason you weren't allowed to refinance, which would never be the case. But like, let's say you're in your mind, you're like, no, if I get a 6% rate, that's what I got. Then I can like basically be like, all right, well, let's look at the numbers. You buy now at 6% versus if you end up buying a year from now, if rates have gone to 5% or 4% or whatever you think they'll go to. And basically the way that it works out is based on 4% appreciation plus the amortization that you're building equity by paying off your mortgage every month, basically is what I mean by amortization lost. If you didn't take out that mortgage, then basically you end up realizing that, like, man, in 2 years, the numbers are like, I would have paid, and you know, like, I don't have a specific example that I'm like drawing from right now, but you know, every time I run these, whether it's 600K home that you're buying and, you know, comparing it to a comparable rent, or whether you're talking about rent being a little bit lower than your mortgage payment would be, no matter how you run the scenario, it's like, you're going to spend a lot on rent during that period. And at the same time, you're going to have built a lot of equity in terms of the amortization that you paid down the mortgage every month and the appreciation. And it's like, man, the numbers like are overwhelming in how they work out. Like, home ownership is just like this is why I'm in this industry. I believe in the power of home ownership. I have seen so many, I'm helping people right now who have built like 200K in equity over the past 3 years. They have a ton of high interest credit card debt, and they decided that, hey, we're going to move, but we're going to buy a place that's the exact same price, except I'm not going to put all of the money, that the equity that I had in that, towards the next place. I'm going to take a lot of it out, go with a lower down payment. I'll pay mortgage insurance a little bit every month, because that difference is so small that the extra equity that I take out is going to go towards high interest credit card debt, and they're going to change their lives. But that does feel very risky, right? So
yeah, but the way you present that, it's like, not say like there's no better time like right now, you know, but yeah, it's 6 months from now, a year from now, with the way things are, you know, it's a good opportunity right now, because we've seen that in Colorado, you know, where, you know, it's a crazy bidding war and people are paying $1 billion over the asking price, and that calming down means there's an opportunity to maybe get something you want.
right, yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, all of it. It's an interesting situation, and yeah, it's a lot of risk analysis all around there.
So are you finding that a lot of, I guess there's a big chunk of, there's a percentage of the market that's going to not take advantage of the opportunities?
Yeah.
And then you know, there's what's happening right now in the next. So where do you see things in the next couple of years? Like, what's kind of your forecast, kind of as we move through this period right now? What's kind of your hit?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I fear that I'm getting a little bit too nerdy here, but basically what I see from the perspective of the economy as a whole is, you know, at the end of the day, mortgage rates follow inflation. So CPI did come out on Wednesday. You know, my story earlier, I wanted to lock in. Turns out that CPI did not come in high. So that's the chief measure of inflation. And it didn't come in high. It was actually completely flat. Well, that's really good news for us because it means inflation. I mean, inflation has just been going up, and it's continued to go up. And at this point, you know, it's finally flat. We're like, okay, cool. Like, have we reached the peak where we're going to start coming back down from here? I think we're not quite out of the woods yet. That was largely driven by gasoline prices coming down. That's a big factor involved, and gasoline prices were largely driven by Russia-Ukraine conflict. There were a couple of other things certainly causing inflation, but that really is what helped it to be kind of flat. I see peak inflation we hitting the peak by like October or so. I don't have a crystal ball. That's just, you know, based on the best forecast that I can see. And, you know, at the end of the day, we have inflation start coming down. The other big unknown right now is there's been all these recession talks, right? And so the fact that inflation kind of hit what people are seeing as a peak, well, the stock market was excited. The stock market went way up on Wednesday. Mortgage rates kind of got a little bit better. They didn't get as much better as you might expect because a lot of people who were excited were putting more of that money towards the stock market to boost it rather than necessarily into the bond markets. But, you know, in terms of kind of what we see moving forward from here, it's like, well, you know, if inflation does start coming down, then we're all going to be excited. But recession is the other piece of this puzzle. And so people are like, cool, inflation is going to start coming down. So recession is like, we're done. Like, we're not going to have a recession. We're kind of done with it. If you look at the data historically, there are a few lagging indicators in terms of recession. The major one is the unemployment rate. And, you know, this is stuff people don't like to talk about. But at the same time, like, what happens before we see a recession is the unemployment rate ticks down to its lowest rate that we've seen. And then as we actually precipitate the recession itself, it starts to tick up a little bit, and it kind of goes up from there because the fear starts to accelerate, you know. And so in terms of the historical trends, like, we are at record lows of unemployment right now. The latest unemployment report that came out showed it actually declined a little bit to 3.5 from 3.6% unemployment. But when you dig into some of the specifics of those numbers, it's kind of like it feels like we're not out of the woods yet. And there's a few other indicators. I don't want to go too nerdy here, but the 10 and the 2-year treasury yield is inverted, meaning basically to describe it quickly, if I'm an investor in a bond that matures in 10 years, I want that bond to make a bigger return than a bond that I only have to wait 2 years for. Well, right now, that's inverted. And so that is another big indicator of a recession coming. And so, like, what I think we'll see, the recessions are not all the same. Like, not all recessions are like 2008. Not all recessions are, you know, the Great Depression or anything like that. Some of them, they're different. But I do think that there is, you know, a little bit more pain ahead to come. If there's not, I'm going to be super excited. I'm just, you know, in terms of weighing out my risk tolerances here, like, I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm just trying to say, like, we should keep an eye on that cloud, and we should probably plan, even if we didn't quite make it to the peak yet, like, we should probably plan to come back another day to make it to the peak there, because, you know, there could be a little more pain coming. So yeah, when I'm talking to borrowers right now, in terms of that forecast, I'm kind of like, hey, if you have any concerns about like losing your job, and if you did lose your job, you know, that you wouldn't get some type of a package that you would be able to use to pay your mortgage until you make it to the next job or anything like that, like, you're one of those people who, like, you're probably right. Like, why don't we wait for a little bit? But a lot of people are in the boat where they have that margin of error. Like, if they do get laid off and they get a package with it, and they have, you know, let's say they have 6 months of living expenses, plus they're already financially savvy, they have 6 months of reserves spending saved up anyway, then, you know, like, hey, you're going to be fine, and you're going to be on that track of continuing to build wealth early on. But if you're not in that boat, then, you know, that's a different risk tolerance that we're looking at. So, you know, that's kind of how we make those decisions.
Well, how would folks, I guess, get a hold of you if they or find out some information? Or I'm sure you've got some magical touch pieces that they can look at. I always like to say, stalk you at the odd hours of the night.
Yeah, yeah, totally,
And
totally.
then I guess best way to like reach out and connect with you for a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a couple of ways. I've done a lot of random stuff in my life. The biggest things right now are, man, I've gotten into the Instagram recently. So I'm on Instagram. I got a personal and a business account just because, at the end of the day, you might be able to tell just from the course of this conversation, I am really into adventure activities. That's where I post all of my stuff over at the Stoked Moose on Instagram. And then I'm a huge nerd. I'm an economics nerd. I'm really into numbers and data. And so I do a lot of kind of talking about that and about the housing market and financial literacy principles in general. And my other Instagram, my business one at Mortgages with Marshall. Yeah, so those are two places that are easy to connect with me. I have, general info about me on there. And if people want to reach out in general, you can find my cell phone. I think they're on both of those. Shoot me a text message, give me a call, whatever. I love hearing from people. And then, I think that people who are interested in the adventure side of things, like you'll get a kick out of checking out some of the random stuff I post on Instagram. But I will say there's also some other random stuff that I've done. Adventuroushabits.com is still a website. It's from way back in the day, but sometimes I go back and I look at what I posted back, and this is like 2011, 12 when I was posting stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, I had some good lessons in there. Like, yeah, some really good stuff. So yeah, check me out over there, or just look me up online. You'll find my various websites and my email and all that stuff.
Well, I know our audience here has probably had a pleasure listening to you and obviously feeling your passion for all things that you engage with. You're definitely a living example, someone who just follows what lights them up and engages fully, 110%. That's even too low of a figure, too low of speed. But I had to say, yeah, I just really appreciate you, brother, having you here, being able to connect again and have this conversation, share it with our audience, and that they'll be able to get a hold of you and kind of just explore some of. Yeah, you got some really great content online. I'm pretty impressed with, yeah, just this is someone to follow. To see where he's going to turn up next, not just following, what's the prediction with the recession
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but where your ship's going, something to keep eyeballs on. So
For sure, for sure. I appreciate you having me on. This
that's a
is
little bit.
awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. And yeah, and so thank you everybody for listening in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Okay, see you soon.